The Room by Paul Iddon. He woke on his side, with his cheek cold against something that wasn't quite floor and wasn't quite mattress, rubberized, faintly tacky, the way hospital things always were, wiped clean but never free of the ghosts of bleach. His mouth tasted of pennies. His tongue stuck to his teeth. When he opened his eyes, there was only white. Not pure white. A scuffed, grimed white that carried a history of hands and heads and other bodies. The walls met the ceiling with no seam he could see, no skirting board, no light switch, no window frame, as if a child had drawn a box around him and colored it in. He lay still long enough to hear his own pulse, thick and animal. Then he said, "Hello?" because silence was worse. His voice came back soft and wrong, swallowed by padding. "Hello? Anyone there?" No echo. Just a low hiss, like breath behind a wall. He sat up too fast, and the world shrank and tilted. A wash of black dots sprinkled across the white. He pressed 2 fingers to the bridge of his nose until the spinning steadied. He tried his name on his tongue and found it there without effort. "Danny," he said, and that felt true. Danny Clarke. He said it again, using the full weight of it like proof. "I'm Danny Clarke." Liverpool rolled through the vowels by habit, familiar as the smell of chip fat on a Friday. The accent steadied him in a small way. He was 40-something, he knew that too, a tightness in the knees, a heaviness in the hips. 43. The number settled with a leaden certainty, and with it came a trickle of panic. How do you know your age if you don't know yesterday? He ran his palms over the floor. Not hard, springy, give beneath the heel of his hand. He crawled to the nearest wall on knees that burned with carpet burn that wasn't carpet, and pressed both hands to it. The surface had a grain like skin under a bandage. He pushed harder. No hollow sound. No seam. The wall pressed back the way a held breath does. "All right," he said to the room, or God, or the idea of someone. "Very funny. What is this then? Some kind of escape room thing? I didn't sign up, mate." Silence. Then that same soft hiss and the hum of blood in his ears. He did a slow tour on hands and knees, nose almost to the wall, looking for a crack, a socket, a screw head, anything. He found nothing. At the second corner, he caught a whiff of something beneath the bleach, a shadow scent of sweat and fear. It turned his stomach. No door, no window. He laughed. The sound startled him by how thin it was. "Trust me to wake up in a fucking cupboard," muttered, and the swearing helped. It made him feel like he was still a person who could be irritated by stupid things rather than a problem in a white box. He cataloged himself because there was nothing else to catalog. Bare feet, hospital-issue trousers, drawstring, dove gray, too clean, a soft top with seams on the outside so they wouldn't bite the skin, no belt, no pockets, no laces. The practical cruelty of safety. He lay back and stared hard at the ceiling, daring it to blink. A memory bubbled up. Steel rain on the Albert dock. Him and someone smaller under a thin hooded coat, laughing because the wind tried to blow them sideways. The memory popped like a soap bubble before it could give him the face. He reached for it, and got nothing but the sense of salt on lips. "Come on," he said, squeezing his eyes shut, fists clenched at his sides. "Give us something, a clue, why?" Another drop. The clack of a pool cue, the sweet rot stink of lager soaked into carpet. A man shouting at the match on telly, and him shouting back, good-natured abuse. Then gone. Like watching a program and someone keeps changing the channel. He pushed to his feet. The world tilted again, and he wrote it out, palm on the wall. He stretched both arms up and scraped his fingers across the ceiling, too high by an inch. He jumped and slapped at it, childish, the way he used to in school corridors to hear the smack echo. No joy here. The padding gobbled it whole. "Tests," he said, pacing now, hands on hips. "It's some kind of test." But there was no clipboard, no glass where people could watch and make notes, no observation slit to point a camera through, just white stitched into white. He counted his breaths. He counted the soft squares in the quilting. Even that was a cheat. The pattern looped in a way that made him lose track, like the room wanted to smooth his brain down with it. He whispered the alphabet. He tried times tables. He started to sing without meaning to, an old song his mum used to hum while ironing, and stopped because the sound made his throat ache. "Danny," he said again, fierce as a charm. "Danny Clarke, 43, Liverpool, red not blue." He smiled despite himself. "And whoever stuck me in here owes me a pint." He sat and pressed his back to the wall, and the wall received him with soft indifference. He tried to think about what he'd been doing yesterday. The day before that, his brain offered him shapes like boats in fog. There, then not. A name rose and fell in him, leaving a wake of grief he couldn't explain. He scratched at his forearm. Nails met skin, then soft cotton. The itch wasn't there, and then it was everywhere. He rolled up his sleeve to look for bites, rashes, proof. His arms were a map of small scars he could not place. He touched each one and tried to summon a story. A bicycle? A dog? A kitchen knife? The stories fluttered just out of reach like pigeons on a railing. "Stop it," he told himself. "You're all right. You're safe. It's just—" He didn't have an ending to that sentence. Just. Time did a trick. It folded. He must have slept sitting up because his neck had a kink in it when the hiss in the walls deepened and flattened again. He woke with a start and a hot line of drool on his chin. His throat was dry enough to crack. No tap. No bottle. He swallowed and felt his body resent the effort. When the fear came, it didn't arrive with a scream. It came like damp, slow and invasive. It soaked his bones. He found himself on his feet again, palms to the wall, like a man praying the structure would take pity. "Please," he said. He didn't mean it to come out like that, begging, but the word was a key in a lock he hadn't known was there, and a piece in him turned. A memory caught. Bright. Wrong. Blue light strobed across kitchen tiles, a woman with wet hair gagging on sobs. His own voice saying, "It was only a minute, I swear, only a bloody minute," and a child's toy lying on its side, one wheel slowly turning as if it had a heartbeat. He staggered back from the wall as if it had shocked him. He pressed the heels of his hands to his eyes until stars baked there. "Don't," he said aloud. "Don't yet. Don't." The room breathed. He could feel it now, the way the air flowed, subtle as a sigh. He put his ear to the padding and heard the hush of some hidden system moving air in and out, mechanically patient. Someone had engineered the exact rate at which he wouldn't suffocate. His own breath quickened to keep up. "Oi!" he shouted suddenly, anger flaring, because anger was easier than fear. His voice hit the white and died. Then, soft as a finger drawn through dust, he heard a whisper, close as if the wall itself leaned in. "Danny." His name, held the way you hold a thing that might break. He pressed his ear harder to the padding, and "Go on, say it again," he whispered back. Silence. The hiss. The blood. He stepped away, heart punching, and the white seemed to glow a fraction warmer, as if something on the other side had moved nearer. "Who's there?" he asked. But the answer was already forming in the back of his throat, like a word he'd been afraid to use. The room did not reply. It waited, and in the waiting, something inside Danny shifted. An old door he hadn't known was there, loosening on its hinges.
He rubbed his arms hard, skin hot under the thin fabric. "Don't play games with me," he muttered. "Just say it." "Danny!" The sound came clear this time, a woman's voice, low, threaded through the white like smoke. His breath stopped. He turned sharply. The wall opposite seemed to ripple, a faint shadow swelling out of it like damp spreading across plaster. The stain grew until it gathered weight, shoulders, hair that fell wet against its cheeks. Danny's knees went weak. He knew that shape, knew the slope of her shoulders before her face even lifted. "Claire," he whispered. His wife. Not possible. Not here. Not anymore. Her lips twisted, something between a smile and a wound. "You left me." "No, no, I didn't." His voice fractured. He pressed back against the wall until the padding gave like flesh. Claire's mouth moved, but the sound slid away, muffled, as though the room wanted him to supply the words himself. He knew them anyway. Accusations. Another sound cut through hers, a smaller voice, thinner, high-pitched with youth. "Dad?" Danny's guts turned to water. A child crouched in the far corner, knees tucked up, toy car clutched in one fist, blonde fringe, wide eyes. Danny's chest convulsed. He remembered, too clearly, the flash of blue lights on kitchen tiles, the toy spinning in a puddle, his own voice saying, "Only a minute, I swear, just a bloody minute." "No, I didn't," he whispered. His throat burned. "Don't! Not you!" The boy pushed the car across the padded floor. It rattled too long, wheels spinning as if they had their own heartbeat. Danny pressed both hands to his skull. "You're not real! You're not bloody real!" The shadow of Claire leaned closer. "Real enough to remember." The boy's eyes fixed on him. "You said you'd be back in a minute, Dad." The words cut through his ribs. His legs gave out and he dropped, curling as bile surged. "Please, I didn't. God, I didn't mean." Another presence stepped out of the white, sharper, taller, solid where the others shimmered. A man, posture straight as authority, clothes indistinct, but his weight undeniable. The doctor. "You broke," the doctor said, voice flat as diagnosis. Danny lifted his head. Sweat streaked his face. "I didn't. I just—" "You broke, and when you broke them too." Claire's hair clung to her face as she shook her head. The boy rolled his car, wheels whispering like insects. The doctor's gaze bore down, immovable. Danny screamed, a raw sound that tore his throat. He lurched forward, clawing at the floor, nails catching until blood welled. "Stop it! Stop showing me this!" But the voices rose together, a chorus of grief and judgment. Claire's whisper, the boy's accusation, the doctor's verdict, words overlapping, tangling into something that didn't sound like language anymore, but condemnation made flesh. Danny slammed his head against the padding, once, twice, trying to drown them out. Then, silence. He froze, panting, forehead pressed to the wall. Slowly he opened his eyes. The figures were gone. The room was white again, blank as the beginning. But his nails still bled. The wall bore fresh scratches. And one word lingered, etched not on the surface, but deep inside his skull, sharp as glass. Broke, he whispered it, tasting the bitterness on his tongue. Broke, as if saying it might dull the sting. Instead, it made the room tilt, the corners swelling, seams surfacing where none had been. He blinked hard and realized they had always been there, faint stitches in the padded lining, disguised by the blankness. This wasn't a room without doors. It was a room with too many, each one sealed, invisible, until now. "No!" he muttered, backing away from the wall, palms slippery with sweat. "No, no, no!" The padding breathed with him. The hiss in the air thickened, a low hum like machinery behind the walls. A cell. Not a miracle, not a nightmare box. A cell designed for him. Memories sluiced through the cracks in his head, jagged and merciless. Claire's face wet with rain and grief. A boy's laughter, high and bright, cut off by a scream. A kitchen clock ticking past the minute he'd promised to return. Blue lights strobing, neighbors whispering. He lost the lot. He dropped to his knees. His body remembered the collapse before his mind did. He pressed his bleeding hands to his face, but it wasn't enough to keep the pictures out. His son's small shoes abandoned by the door. Claire's voice breaking as she said his name in past tense. The doctor's verdict? He broke. "I didn't mean to," Danny said, sobbing now, throat raw. "I just left for a minute, just a minute." The room gave nothing back. No voices, no shadows, just the cold indifference of padding designed to muffle screams. He curled sideways on the floor, cheek pressed to the rubberized surface. For a moment, he thought he felt warmth, the impression of a smaller body lying beside him, his son, or the ghost of him. He closed his eyes and pretended it was real, that the boy was only sleeping. A sound came, soft, distant, metal scraping, a latch turning. Danny's head jerked up, heart hammering. One section of wall seemed to quiver. A seam widened, just enough to suggest a door. Light bled through, too bright after all the white. A figure loomed in it, tall in scrubs, face blurred. A nurse, or another hallucination. "Time for your meds, Mr. Clarke," the voice said, calm and professional, as though none of this mattered. Danny staggered upright, reaching out. "Claire? Lad?" But when he blinked, the figure was gone, the wall seamless again. He sagged against it, body hollow. The warmth of the imagined child beside him had already faded. His lips shaped the only words that made sense, dry as dust. "I remember now." The white pressed tighter. Not walls, but hands. Not silence, but a suffocating blanket. The hiss of the air system rose, steady, patient, as if it had all the time in the world. Danny closed his eyes, but the room remained. And in the padded silence, memory was the cruelest companion of all.